Jonathan Marks, president of GoToHealth Media.
So, what inspired you to create GoToHealth Media?
Well, my mother wanted me to be a doctor. That's the first thing. I never became a doctor, but I decided I was very interested in health education and learning about conventional methods, also alternative methods. I really did a lot of research on alternative health. I was also combined that with my career, which has been in communications my whole career. I've been in cable television and the yellow pages and the internet. And when it came time to run my own business, I decided I wanted to do it in health education. So I started this about 20 years ago, doing promotions of health initiatives. So I worked for 10 years for a group called ADHD in adults. And these were experts from around the world educating both health professionals and the public about ADHD in adults because it was very, very under-recognized and underdiagnosed. It used to be that doctors thought that this was mostly in young boys, and when the boys became older, they became a little bit less physically hyperactive, so they thought the ADHD went away. But research in the 1980s learned that ADHD is really a lifelong condition, and it's equal in both men and women. So ADHD in adults was very, very underdiagnosed. So I did a lot of professional education for this group. We provided a lot of information for doctors, psychiatrists, on how to recognize ADHD in adults. And then we also did a tremendous amount of public education about ADHD. So that kind of really got me started. I worked on that for 10 years. We had almost 1 million YouTube views. We had 90 hours of video education for health professionals. It was a very, very successful project. The funding for that ended, so I went on to something else. But then I also started doing health communications for the Centers for Disease Control. And I had a faculty, again, for 10 years where we did health education training for the Centers for Disease Control on how to do effective health communications. Another project I worked on for 5 years was in Europe, and it was called originally Eat to Be Nice. It was basically funded by the EU, but it was a consortium of 18 university hospitals in Europe, and they were doing original research on how what you eat and your lifestyle affects your mental health. And I became the marketer for that, and I changed the name from Eat to Be Nice, which I didn't think was a great title. I changed it to New Brain Nutrition. And
I like that.
yes, New Brain Nutrition was what we marketed it all under, and it was also a very successful project. And when all that ended, I started my own business called GoToHealth. So now what I do is I interview health experts from around the world because I have a lot of connections, and they share their expertise, what to do when you have different health conditions, what to watch out for, how to prevent certain conditions, what to do if you have those conditions. I'm just very motivated by learning that information myself and then sharing it with the public.
And you've done all sorts of media and with success. What is it like using that medium to amplify your message?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you where I really got this idea. I was working for the Yellow Pages. I was the vice president of strategy. This was in the 1999, 2000.
Okay.
And this was really as the internet was coming into play here. And our marketing department did a skit that showed little Susie couldn't reach the dining room table anymore because the Yellow Pages was getting thinner. So I don't know who will remember this, but as I was growing up, as I raised my kids, whenever you wanted to seat your kid at the dining room table, you sat him on the Yellow Pages because it was a nice thick book, but it was just getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And so what we did at the Yellow Pages is we not only did the print book, but we also started taking the content from those yellow page ads and turning them into TV commercials, turning them into internet ads, so that we could now take one piece of content that started out as a yellow page ad and turn it into a multimedia ad. And that's where I really kind of got this idea of taking one medium and turning it into multiple media. And with the technology we have today, it's so easy to do, and it's so effective to do. So what I do with the interviews that I conduct now is I conduct the interview in video. It can be a 20-minute to an hour interview, depending on what the person wants. And then what I can do from that, it's a video interview, but then I can also put it up on 8 podcast networks, which is audio. I can also create blog content out of it. I can create social media posts out of it. So just from one interview, I can really create multimedia that gets the word out in so many different ways. I just love it.
What are some of the things you've learned from your guests?
Oh my gosh. Right now I'm working on a series of videos and this is something I knew nothing about, for a vein doctor. And it turns out that Venus, they call it Venus, which is not from the planet Venus, but Venus or Venus. Venus disease is quite common in the legs and the feet, and almost everybody gets it at some point in their life, because what happens is the veins have to push the blood back to the heart, and at some point these veins start giving out, and it creates vein disease. And usually what it shows up as first is what we call varicose veins or spider veins, and those are indications. I'm just telling you an example of one interview I've done. Those are examples of deeper problems that can cause real discomfort for people. So a spider vein or a varicose vein can also have deeper problems, such as restless legs. Restless legs are when the blood pools in your feet or your legs and it's not being pumped up fast enough, and you just have to shake your legs to get that blood moving. It can also cause swelling in the feet and the legs. Also, it can cause poor wound healing. So just what we think of as an innocent cosmetic varicose vein can be indicative of a deeper problem, which really needs to be taken care of. And it really is, the whole issue is really underdiagnosed and unrecognized by most of the medical profession. So this is a fascinating interview to get this information out, not only to the public, but also to health professionals, so they can better help patients who come to see them. That's one example.
You were talking earlier about ADHD.
Yes.
And then bringing up either other mental health issues or illnesses. How
Yes.
important is it to talk about that side of your health?
Yeah, sure. So we were originally funded in ADHD in adults. We were originally funded to educate health professionals about adult ADHD, because health professionals are basically undereducated about adult ADHD. As I mentioned before, it was originally considered just to be a disorder in children and mostly in boys, but we now know that it's a lifelong disorder. And the other interesting thing is, when you have ADHD, it's also coincident with a number of other mental health problems. So anxiety, depression, any number of other mental health disorders come along with ADHD. So usually people have multiple diagnoses. And what we found was, we created content for health professionals, but the vast majority of people who watched this content were the public, because they were really starving for this kind of information. So what we realized, even though we were being funded to educate health professionals, we really started focusing our content equally on information for the public, so that they could get help or even work with their doctors to get diagnosed because a lot of adults are underdiagnosed with ADHD. The original numbers back, 15 years ago was 80% of adult ADHD folks were undiagnosed because it was just never caught, and it was never thought that it was an adult issue. But we now know that ADHD is lifelong, and we're even learning now that as people get older, you might think, dementia starts becoming an issue. So the question is this dementia or is this ADHD? And so what we're realizing is that ADHD is lifelong. It can have an effect even as you get to be a senior citizen. And we have to differentiate ADHD, which had never been diagnosed before, from dementia.
And I've been in broadcasting over 20 years, but I just, love creating videos, editing, and all that. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, we have very similar backgrounds. Yeah, yeah. I love creating multimedia. I really feel like my background was really in cable television. I was one of the first folks in our company to create a show that I did monthly. It was called Cable Talk, and it was actually to educate the public about cable television. So I would have guests on that would talk about cable television or cable television programming. And I really got to I lived in San Francisco at the time. I really got to be recognized on the streets of San Francisco. So that was really a kick, and that really got me hooked on television.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
What do I do to help my own mental health? I laugh a lot. I
That's
love
good.
I love comedy. I just love comedy, and I find it, wherever I can. Every night when I go to bed, I'm always watching the late night comics, and I remember jokes. I kind of use them, repeat them, and that's what keeps me. That's what keeps me healthy, is a good sense of humor.
What has some of the feedback been for your podcast?
It's growing. Um, I'm growing the YouTube views and the
Yeah.
YouTube subscriptions. But for the people, the shows that I do are very specific about
Yeah.
specific conditions. So I recently did a show on RSV, which is this virus, this respiratory virus that's
Yeah.
going around that can be very deadly. Um, I, so it really focuses on the importance of getting vaccinated. So it really depends. I also did one recently on endometrial cancer, which happens in women over 60 for the most part. So they're very specific topics, and they get a lot of specific interest if people are in that demographic,
Yeah.
or if they've had the disease itself and they want to learn more about it, or they want to prevent getting the disease. So I really focus the shows on the specific demographic for who we're focusing the show at, and I basically do what's called keyword research to get the videos seen based on keywords, which are people, they're terms that people are looking up on the internet. So I try to associate all my shows with the particular keywords that are associated with the topic.
What motivates you?
What motivates me? I'm just an enthusiastic guy. I don't know. I was born this way. I just love what I do. I love educating people. I think that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Is I'm really a teacher, a trainer. I just love providing new information, new perspective for people. And my website, GoToHealth Media. It's GoToHealthMedia.com. I help people learn about different health conditions, but I really speak to two different audiences. I help people learn about health conditions, but I also help health professionals get their word out,
Yeah.
because health professionals are not the best marketers. That's not their specialty.
Right.
And so what I really do is help train them on how to get their word out. I used to be president of the Las Vegas Health and Fitness Chamber of Commerce. We did a lot of training for health professionals And I also, again, as a trainer, worked for 10 years for the CDC, for the Centers for Disease Control, doing webinars on effective health communication. So I love to train. I love to learn myself, keep adding to my knowledge, and I love sharing the expertise and knowledge I have with others.
Where do you want to see your mission in the next few years?
Gosh, I would love to be. I've really just started the business. This is GoToHealth Media, and I just started this in the last couple of years. And of course, we were coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But what I'd really love to see is very large subscriptions and views on YouTube. I'm growing that very quickly now, and I'm really looking to be a premier source of health information for people, and also a premier marketer for medical practices, for nonprofit organizations, for companies that can see Go to Health Media as a way to get their word out to the biggest audiences they possibly can. That would fulfill my mission.
How can people reach out to you and learn more?
Yeah, so you go to gotohealthmedia.com. It's gotohealthmedia.com. And I just came up with that term, and there are a couple of other companies out there that are also called Go to Health, but mine is gotohealthmedia.com. So that's where you can go there. We've got almost 100 videos now on our website. I also have a lot of ways for health practices or nonprofits or corporations to market themselves through me. I do medical meetings, promotions. There was one society I worked with. I helped double their attendance at their annual meeting by interviewing the speakers they were going to have at the meeting. I did short 3 to 5 minute interviews with the speakers, and that was a great way to promote the medical meeting, and it really helped attendance and membership. So I just love figuring out ways to get more information out about health and medicine.